All right, so I'm in the studio right now, and today is usually not the day where I go through comments in my videos, but I thought I'd come on here because I am having an argument in my head, which is something that I often do as an only child and as an Aquarius. I'm just reading through the comments, and somebody wrote to one of the shorts I posted about my merino wool experiment where I wore the same underwear for a week without washing it. And they wrote, so you think it's a good idea to get on the internet and tell the world that you have and plan to continue to wear the same underclothing without washing them for days? ? Nasty! ! A couple of thoughts in response to that. I think the first one is this comment just strikes me as somebody who's probably young and immature. And I don't mean that like young and immature in the way that like they should be more mature. I just mean like literally, I think this person, and I assume it's a man because YouTube tells me that most of the people who watch my content are men. And this person's name is Reggie, or at least his handle is Reggie. But it just strikes me as something that like a young dude would say who's concerned about impressing strangers. And I wrote in my response that like I'm at a different stage in life, right? Like I'm married, I have 2 kids, I have holding down a job. I got like other shit I need to be doing and thinking about than to be worrying about whether or not the people I don't know in my life are impressed by me, or at least like worried about whether or not I think I'm nasty or not. And, you know, I think that comes with like a certain level of maturity and age and stage in life where you like, you know who you are. Like I know that I take care of myself. So it's not really a question for me, right? Like, yeah, it's just not something that I like think about. Like, oh, am I nasty? Am I not nasty? Like, do people think I'm nasty? It's not something that is like a shaky principle or identity for myself. So that's the first thing. Hey folks, I just wanted to take a break and let you know that one of the best ways to get the most out of the content on this channel is to subscribe to my newsletter. Every Sunday, I give you more depth and insight into the topics I cover on Out There JCH, including thoughts and perspectives that I don't really share on this platform. The newsletter is free to sign up, and as an incentive to becoming a subscriber, I'm offering a free wild food resource guide that will help make you a more capable harvester and home cook. Just click the link in the description to sign up. Okay, let's get back to the episode. The second thing is that I think that like this comment also shows that this person like doesn't understand how like germs and body odor work in general. And that's not necessarily their fault. It's not something that we're necessarily taught, you know, as a matter of like our general education. So I'll probably end up doing like a long form video about this, but this is just sort of like a blog style in the moment, want to respond to something. Like the reason why things smell, like your clothing smells or your body smells or what have you, is because there are odor-causing microbes in your clothing or on your skin that are proliferating and making those smells. And like it's important to know that and it's important to understand that. But then when you do understand that, you then can begin to understand why wearing the same underwear for an entire week without washing it is not that big of a deal, right? Because we use the time that we've worn something as a proxy for it being, quote, dirty. But the only reason why something gets dirty or starts smelling is because there's a lot of odor-causing bacteria that are there. And you just know this from like basic biology, that the thing, not even basic biology, you know this if you were like a home cook or worked in, you know, food industry or something like that. The thing that causes the proliferation of microbes is moisture. Like they need to have a food source, but like nothing happens without moisture. You know, all life on this planet, so far as human beings have been able to describe, is water-based, right? So we need water to survive. And microbes are the same way. It's the reason why, like, you can dehydrate meat and just leave it out and it, you know, with some salt and some seasoning and stuff like that to prevent microbes. But like if you adequately dehydrate something, it doesn't spoil because there's not enough moisture for those organisms that cause, you know, illness and byproducts that we don't want to proliferate. And it's the same for clothing. The reason why merino wool is such a magical fabric, an incredible fabric, is that it is antimicrobial. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that this clothing, aside from having chemical properties that help prevent the proliferation of microbes, it also does a very efficient job of handling moisture. And you've heard terms like moisture wicking fabric.
I'm starting to think that
Like, this clothing was made for desert environments because it's just so lovely. Now I kind of want to test how these perform in a hot and wet environment to see if it's going to be just as comfortable as it is now. But like, I have some very nice clothes that were cotton clothes that were gifted, or I think maybe linen clothes that were gifted to me. And they're very nice. They breathe very well, but they don't dry as quickly as this does. The shirt just wouldn't stay, or sorry, yeah, the linen clothes don't dry as quickly as the wool clothes do. The wool clothes just refuse to stay wet for longer than maybe 5 minutes. And yes, the extreme heat has something to do with that. But I've also been like in an AC car a lot of the day as well, and it just gets dry really, really quickly. The idea that the fabric can pull moisture off of your body so that your body doesn't smell as quickly, and then evaporate that water from the fibers in the clothing, and thus making the clothing not smell. That's how that principle works. And so when you begin to actually have the knowledge about what you mean when you say like dirty or nasty, then it begins to make sense why someone could do the thing that I did, which was wear my underwear for a week straight without washing. There's a limit to how many times you can wear it. And I think it's different for each person. As a bigger guy, I tend to sweat more than, smaller people do. And so I'm not going to get as much mileage out of the clothing that maybe somebody who is smaller and maybe sweats less than I do does. But the principle's still the same, right? If you wear clothing that wicks moisture away from your body and then dries itself fairly rapidly, then you're not going to have the same issues as if you were wearing something like cotton or other synthetic fabrics that are not good at wicking moisture. So that's like the science of it and the principle of it. And this person commented on the short, so they didn't actually watch the whole video. So that's another thing. But, I think that speaks to the last thing that that came to my mind when I was thinking, or when I was wanting to respond to this comment, and just sort of thinking in general, like, where do these sorts of comments come from? And it's something that I find really disappointing. And that's a lack of curiosity and a tendency to just sort of like accept conventional colloquial knowledge without actually questioning the foundations and the roots of it. Now, I think that there's definitely value to sort of like going along with what is popular or conventional in society in some cases. But I think for the most part, and this is why I have a channel like this, and I think this is just sort of like my own personal nature, I like to question like the foundations of things. And when it comes to a lot of things in American society, and as I've written about in my newsletter, anti-indigenous civilizations, like the conventional wisdom is actually not that great. We certainly have had tremendous technological advances in these societies, but there are so many epidemics of awful things that are antithetical to our species. And I think one of the things that like the dominant culture of the United States and many other cultures push you towards is like a lack of curiosity and a sort of devaluing of curiosity. Just believe in this or think that, without actually encouraging people to dig a little bit deeper. And so comments like this are always kind of disappointing and a reminder that if you don't want to think too hard about anything, you don't really have to in this world. I mean, in this world that, anti-indigenous civilizations have built, right? It's all sort of cookie cutter for you. It's all laid out for you. You don't really have to do anything. And of course, that benefits the society because you have a society of automatons who are not really engaged with their deeper selves and these sorts of things. So, like when I post a short like that, and I say, and it's meant to be provocative, like 1 week in the same pair of underwear, I hope that people are like, that sounds bonkers. I want to know more. Instead of, that sounds bonkers. It's stupid or nasty, and I don't need to know any more about it. Like Reggie and I don't know each other, so I don't really have any expectation that he would give me the benefit of the doubt that there's more to what I have said and more to that short than it appears on the surface. But I think it's a really cynical way of looking at like people that you don't know, to just be like, oh, this person is getting on the internet and just talking some bullshit that is, well, actually, maybe it's not that cynical because there's just like the internet's full of like people who are doing that. So yeah, I don't know. Clearly Reggie didn't do any sort of like background or anything. And clearly the idea of wearing the same underwear for a week without washing it is a non-starter for him. And that's cool. Like if that's a non-starter for you, then we don't really have anything to talk about. It also means that you don't necessarily have to comment on it, right? Because I think it does mean that like Reggie is maybe a little bit curious, if for nothing else, to just like berate somebody that he thinks is nasty, or be like, let me comment about how stupid I think this is, which again is a pastime of the internet and something that I used to engage in a lot more, but it just wasn't actually moving me forward to a place where I wanted to be. So anyway, those are just some thoughts that I had that I want to get on here and talk about. I do plan on launching a travel channel where I have more reviews of like merino wool clothing. Like I'm going to do a full review on this Woolen Prince sweatsuit that I like wear religiously. I wear this thing almost every single day, especially during the colder months. Also going to be talking about things like how to pack for overseas travel, what it's like to be a Black person traveling in India, and just generally like, what it's like to be out here and be out and about. And with a focus on like minimalist traveling, I like to go places and have everything that I need in a relatively small space. I have almost exclusively flown carry-on for like the last 4 years, not just because bag fees are exorbitant, but also because, I like being able to take with me only the things that I need and nothing that I don't. So yeah, if you want to see more merino wool content, then you probably should check out this video where I go into the whole spiel about wearing one pair of underwear for a week without washing it. Just so you know, like I took the underwear off and I let it hang dry and air out before I wore it the next day. I wasn't just like wearing the same pair of underwear for, a week without taking it off. So yeah, you want to check out that video. And if you're into like wild food and thinking about the socio-political, ecological landscapes of outdoor spaces, then YouTube's probably going to suggest something for you here. All right. Thanks for tuning in to my rant. I'll see you next time on